Hi there folks, welcome back to Rich Reviews. So my latest film for you guys here now, and continuing on the theme of films that didn't get a wide release in theaters, didn't make much money or found its way onto the internet, and continuing on the documentary track here for a moment, we have Brian Wilson, Long Promised Road. And if you're thinking to yourself, do we necessarily need another documentary or film about the legendary Brian Wilson, who, using the word genius, no longer needs to have a label on it? And as presented by Brett Wilson and Rolling Stone writer Jason Fine, this is part, rehashing of a lot of material that you may or may not know, and also carpool karaoke with, Jason Fine, who met Brian Wilson back in the early 90s when he was coming out of his bad period of his life. When he was interviewing him, at least at one point during that time in the 90s, he got up from the interview and went to his kitchen and stayed there for a while. And when Jason asked him why he was in the kitchen, he said he was scared. Now, obviously, Brian Wilson is still very much a gentle soul and still happens to have auditory hallucinations, but this man, still at the age of 80, he's still doing his music, still going on tour despite the pandemic, of course. And obviously a whole bunch of artists and people just sing his praises, more or less. It's obviously amazing to know that this man, who back in his early career was part of one of the more legendary bands of all time, and we see early footage and interviews of him. And granted, do I wish I could have grown up in this time? Obviously, yes. And obviously he had a troubled relationship with his father, and obviously during the 60s he would create his masterwork. And obviously I think it always goes to show that sometimes early on in people's careers, whether it be artisans or politicians or lawyers maybe to a lesser extent, not everyone is deeply appreciated during their lifetime. Obviously Brian Wilson has become deeply appreciated in their lifetime. You also get the talking heads, Bruce Springsteen, Elton John, Nick Jonas, which I don't understand why Nick Jonas is still a thing, but hey, look, we all need people to sing people's praises, and I don't think, will anybody be singing the praises of the Jonas Brothers in 20 to 30 years come now? I don't really know. Hopefully they're washed up and they're divorced. They're doing the carpool thing where they have rigged up cameras, and obviously they go to various points in which, yes, some of that stuff may be uncomfortable for Brian, but for me, it's like, hey, look, that's quite interesting. And at least at one point when they're at a restaurant, they meet Vanna White, although we don't get to see Vanna White, because quite frankly, that would be interesting if we did get to see Vanna White. Of course, he gets under the spell of the psychiatrist that we would all come to learn, emeraldly portrayed in Love and Mercy by Paul Giamatti as that one scummy psychiatrist who thinks he knows all and thinks all. And then obviously he meets the second wife who helps him get back on track, more or less. There's always a good woman in this type of documentary. Again, this is a love letter to Brian Wilson. There are a couple of moments where he is at concerts, and yes, there are still indeed some moments where he does get butterflies. Like, performing is hard. So in the end, folks, what I'm going to say about Brian Wilson, Long Promised Road, amazingly enough, I'm going to give this a matinee rating, because quite frankly, I think people should see this, because quite frankly, people like these are not going to be around for very much longer, particularly if the pandemic holds up. So folks, Brian Wilson, Long Promised Road, have you seen this? What'd you think? Please put everything in the comment box below here, folks. As always, folks, like, comment, subscribe, and rid yourself of knowledge. I'll see you next time, folks. Yes, hooray.